MC, way more than a fantasy. Let's see who going toe to toe. Throw down on the mat, check the replay, run it back. We gotta check the stats. Hey, do this every day. We ain't come to play. This is sports talk, and we love talking MMA. Everything fantasy sports. Dopest show that I know. With Electric Dave and talented Mr. Taco. Let's go. Hey, G.
What's up, everybody? This is the Daily Sporting Blitz, or TDS Blitz, as we like to say. This is a rankings episode, and we're ranking tight ends in PPR settings. Okay, PPR, as most people know, is a point per reception. All right, and what we're gonna do in this particular episode here is break down some of our favorite guys, break down some of the guys that we're looking at. We're gonna show you some of our in-depth rankings and be able to get you kind of situated for what we see this tight end landscape being. Ricky, off the bat, man, how you feeling about these tight ends?
Tight ends are always I've always had an issue with them. With me, I mean, years you've been in fantasy, tight ends always seems to be like the one thing I'm always missing. I'm always trading for. Besides the top guys, which is about 4, right? 4 or 5, let's say. After that, it's I don't want to say a crapshoot, but you know what you're getting for some. But as far as like production, there's always a year or two where this tight end comes out, another one comes, surprises you, and then you pick them off waivers, things like that. I think Logan Thomas was one of them last year. So again, tight end to me is one of the positions that always seems to elude me and always seems to be the trickiest for me.
Yeah. I think consistently it's one of those tricky positions because there's so few playmakers at that position, and it's relatively new that we're starting to see more playmakers come out of that position. But the problem with that is that, these people endure rookie seasons, they endure, injuries, and it kind of puts it in an up and down situation. Right. Now, I have a question for you off the bat. Last season, there was a gap between second and third, like there always is, because second versus third. How large of a gap do you think it is between those two positions?
You mean between the second tight end and the third?
And tight end 3.
3? As far as point-wise?
Yep, points. For the season in total.
Probably is like 100-point drop?
It is actually a 100-point drop. Darren Waller was so the number one I'll pull this up here so you guys can see it right here. But the number one tight end last season was Travis Kelce at 312 points. He had 105 receptions, 416 yards, 11 touchdowns. He was number one. Then you're looking at, about, almost like 40 to 50 points lower.
Yeah.
You see Darren Waller, 107 receptions, 1196 on the yards, 9 touchdowns. Then that's when we see Robert Tonyan. It's a 100-point drop off, and it's Robert Tonyan, who was someone that was off the waiver wires in most leagues, being there, and he was buoyed by his 11 touchdowns. He had 5.
Yeah, that's what it was for me. Was Tonyan was getting touchdowns like almost every week. Every week that came by, he was getting a touchdown.
Yep. But the biggest thing about him is, like, when you look at it, the tight ends after Waller, they significantly dropped off. And Hayden Hurst, when you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You drafted Hayden Hurst. You really were disappointed in his production, and he was still the 9th highest scoring tight end on the season last year. So I think it's one of those positions where we may be too quick to give up on a guy, and you might have to hold him for most of the season.
Or it's, sometimes it's not even that you're giving up. You expected more, like Hurst was a good one because I expected more from him, right?
Yep.
Thinking he was behind Andrews, right? Now he's by himself, right? And the Falcons throw. So I had high hopes, but like you said, it's such a drop, 100 points from second to third. So you can't expect, if you drafted a tight end in the end, that he's going to give you that top tier or even top tier, second tier production. Because
he was off the waiver wire. He was off the waiver wire in most leagues. In most leagues that I was playing in, I got him off the waiver wire. Most people thought Jimmy Graham not Jimmy Graham, but most people thought someone else at tight end was going to show up before he did. One other thing that we have to note here is that George Kittle, who only played 8 games last season, was still one of the better tight ends and put
Yeah.
up 125 points, which was only 50 points behind the number 3 tight end.
Yeah.
And the number 3 tight end played 16 games and Kittle played 8. So he only played 8 games more or 8 games less than Tunyon. I think that's super interesting when you look at the fact of how much potential Kittle has
Right.
and how bad tight end could be.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's one of those positions, like I said, it's always eluded me. It's always been an issue for me. But I knew that when you said it, I knew there was like 100-point drop. I know there's a big drop. And then, like you said, Kittle is 50 behind Tunyon, who's number 3.
Yeah.
That's really 2 games for him,
Yep.
It could be 2 games for Kittle. He can make that up in 2 games.
Yep.
That's how much Kittle scores. So, again, coming into this year, he's going to be a top tight end, right? He's going to be a top pick up there with Kelsey. But, again, it does show you how tight ends are really iffy.
Yep, and speaking to that, we both have Kittle and Kelsey as the number 1 and 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
For me, I have Waller at number 3. Just when you look at what he's done over these last couple of years, last season in 2019, he was a number 2 scoring tight end. In the season before that, when we look at the tight ends, he was in the top 3. So he's I feel like he's consistently reached this 220, 200, 70 type threshold. He has a good upside. I don't really see much competition for him with the Raiders. So I'm very bullish on Waller. To me, Waller and Kittle are neck and neck, where it really just depends on what you're looking for, as far as if you're really afraid of the Kittle injuries, or if you really believe that Waller has more upside still available in him. You have Andrews at 4, who I have ranked at 7. So give me a little bit about how you feel about Andrews and why you have him ranked.
Well, I just think, again, I think Ravens are going to open it up more. I think they're going to pass more. If you look at Andrews, again, he didn't have a great season yesterday. They didn't throw at me. That offense was really for Andrews. He still was a big target, right?
Last season, he scored 170 points, so he was ranked as the number 6 tight end. He had 7 touchdowns, 701 yards, 58 catches. He was pretty solid. I had him for my season last year. He was pretty good in the beginning. He had a lull in the middle, and he had some games at the end where he really started to come on. But he was a little frustrating, like most tight ends. But at the end of the day, he did score.
Yeah, and I think they're just going to get better this year. Again, I think they're opening it up more. Again, what always kills us with the Ravens is Jackson getting those red zone carries. But I do think they might even try to get back to getting Andrews in the end zone. I think that 7 touchdowns could be you're looking at double digits.
Okay. I definitely think that he does have a lot of upside, but it's really going to come down to how that offense plays and who Lamar Jackson ends up becoming, or who Lamar Jackson favorites, or who he peppers with the targets. Because Marquise Brown, while he's been good, he hasn't been great. He hasn't sold you on his capabilities.
Right.
You're looking at a guy like who they signed. They signed Sammy Watkins, and then they signed and they drafted Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
So they have a couple of playmakers that they got on this team that they're expecting big things from. So it just comes down to a question of who Lamar Jackson picks. Now, what is it? Kyle Pitts, he's for me the number 4 tight end. I could possibly push him up higher. I'm totally infatuated with Pitts. I love his upside. I think he's one of those few rookie tight ends that does have the potential to be, historical. He could put up possibly the greatest season for a tight end that we've ever seen, and beat guys like Ingram and Mike Ditka. He's in a situation where there's no Julio Jones this season, so he's going to possibly be the number 2 receiving option on a team that doesn't have a great defense, and you should expect to be in a lot of passing games. So I'm very bullish on Pitts, and like we saw in the combine and saw in his draft stock, this kid is a freak athlete with tons of ability.
Right.
So I'm definitely very intrigued by Kyle Pitts.
I think he's a rookie that's going to make an impact right away.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. They're going to use him as if he's a veteran. You know what I mean? Like they're going to put him in all the offensive schemes. He's that talented. Again, I have to see what it is now with Ridley and only, I know Julio Jones takes away targets, but again, when you had those two, the tight end, was kind of secondary, right? Now he's going to be the main objective, one of the main objectives besides Ridley. Those are going to be their big two weapons. I got to see Matt Ryan another year older. Again, he's normally always pretty solid, but again, he had a really lot of ups and downs last year, more than I've seen before.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'll point to though is like what we've seen out of Tony Gonzalez and what we saw, you know, with Austin Hooper, is that Matt Ryan and the tight end generally have a good connection. And if we're gonna go back to more of that type offense where you're gonna see tight end play because they have Hurts and they have Pitts, I think there's a good situation that you could see Pitts really starting to explode, especially when you look at the kind of dynamic playmaker that he is. So I think Pitts is going to be one of the most interesting tight ends to watch. Like Ricky said, he's kind of more of like he has to see it before he can believe it type guy. Whereas me, I'm very interested and infatuated with the potential upside that you get out of this guy. And I'm willing to take a risk, especially at this position where he's seen so many guys not be able to consistently score. I think I would be willing to take a reach and a risk on him in the 4th, 5th round of drafts. But I don't like some of these guys who are taking him in the 2nd. I may be in the 3rd and the back end of the 3rd, but I don't know if I could take him in the front end of the 3rd.
Like when you say reach, like I don't think it's a reach if you choose him over anyone that I have under him.
Well, what I'm saying is a reach is like you're taking him in the 3rd round or you're taking him in the 2nd round. Like to me, that's reaching on him because there's other players on the board that'll be more helpful.
Yeah,
if you're talking about getting him in the back end of the 3rd, 4th round, I can consider him because of the upside over some of the other guys that would be on the board.
Well, I mean, again, we know it's Kelsey and Kittle first, right? They're going to be the first two out, probably out the gate. Now it's really
Waller. I mean, you could
Waller
over Kittle
or Waller. So to me, again, I don't see how someone reaches and picks him in the 2nd round. I mean, that would be. I mean, you're over.
I mean, it depends on how your draft goes. What if you have a guy? What if you have Kittle, Kelsey, and Waller gone in the first couple rounds? You could look at a situation where if you're in a 14-team league in that back end.
I don't know if the receivers that are there are any running backs that you're going to choose Pitts over them. I don't know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
If I'm getting a 2nd round pick is a big reach to me for him.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
That's a big reach.
That I wouldn't go that high with him.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
And positional scarcity, I know a lot of people factor it in. But if you're talking back in the 3rd, 4th round, 5th round, that's a perfect prime time position to smash a guy with this kind of upside, in my opinion. That's I think a good.
If you're choosing the 2nd round, you're saying he's going to be as good as Kittle or Kelsey.
I think that's very possible, though. Like I don't know.
I don't know if that's possible this season.
I really think that people are underplaying his upside. This kid could be the best tight end that ever played the game of football. Like people aren't respecting him like that.
You gotta see it. You love.
I get where you gotta see it, but this is how you win championships. Though now, if you draft him in the 2nd round, you're expecting that, then he has to produce at that. But if you get him in the 4th round and he
that's a different story. What I'm saying to you choose in the 2nd, he's gonna be a bust if he's not at least top.
He has no wiggle room.
There's no. Yeah, you're all in. You're thinking, oh, this guy's gonna be like a receiver for me. That's what you're thinking.
That's next year. That's his next year price. Next year, when guys like you start buying into the Kool-Aid, that's when he's going to be a definite.
Once he does a year under his belt, then that's a different story.
Yeah. So this is going to be a big year for him. There's more of a gamble involved, but the question is going to be how spicy do you feel and how do you want to build your team?
Yeah.
Because there is positional scarcity that you have to factor into it, which is why sometimes you might see him go a little bit higher. Now, with the next guy down, you had Pitts at your 5. I have TJ Hawkinson at my number 6, and I have Andrews at my number 7. So we already spoke about Andrews, so let's speak about Hawkinson right here. And Ricky, I'll let you go on this one.
Well, I mean, it's really listen, we already know what Goff loved to do, right? With Higbee and Everett. So again, he's getting a quarterback that loves his tight end. But is to me it's a downgrade, right? I mean, I don't see how you could say it's not a downgrade. But again, who else is out there
for who?
for the quarterback?
Yeah.
To me, from Stafford to Goff, it's a downgrade. I mean, you're going from having Stafford throw to you to now having Goff.
Oh yeah, it's a huge downgrade.
It's a huge downgrade. So, but again, who else is out there? He's gonna get be one of the main focal points. And we know Goff loves his tight ends. He used Everett, he used Higbee all the time when they're available, right? When they were out there. So again, to me, Hawkinson, I like him. I think he was sneaky good last year. He wasn't, he didn't put up these big numbers, but at the end, if you look at everything at the end, he was, he was number 4. I mean, I liked him a lot. I had him on my team.
Number 5.
Number 5. I had him on my team, a couple of teams. So I still think he's going to produce somewhat what you're seeing now. Maybe probably a little less.
See, like, that's my thing, though.
I see you going down a little less.
If he goes down,
scroll down more.
He's right here. He's 700.
Yeah, I want to see what the other points are below him.
He can't do worse than this. If he's doing less than 700 yards and 6 touchdowns, he's an absolute bust. And if you're taking him anywhere near your top 50 picks, 60 picks, you are losing. And I think that's something we also have to keep in mind where we're going to drop him. He may be ranked that high, but if he does any worse than this, he is not.
Yeah, and it's possible that he does a little worse than that. I don't think he gets to Gesicki numbers, but I think he could be in the 165. I can see.
I mean, you're only talking about 11 points between Gesicki and Andrew. I mean, Gesicki and Hawkinson.
Yeah, but if he just starts doing 150, I mean, he had a bad. I mean, it depends where you picked him, but that would be. You're going to take a hit there.
Yeah. And also, if we look at it just so that we can have context here, I feel like last year was a little bit more of a down year for the tight end, but overall, it does come into a similar look.
Right.
And if we look here, again, there goes Higbee showing up. Higbee that season, again, there was 2 tight ends that they were running because Everett was still in town there.
Yeah, he was there.
But this speaks to what Ricky was saying. Higbee was targeted 89 times, 69 receptions. I mean, again, you could probably see a season like this from Hawkinson, and you're not going to be mad at it, but his ceiling is kind of limited.
Yeah, that I would definitely say. You know what you're getting with him, but sometimes you just need that for your team as a tight end.
Yeah. And again, I like his upside more than Andrews, just in the mere fact of there's more mouths to feed with the Ravens versus the Lions. Like Ricky said, he is probably going to be the de facto number 1 option, which does give him good upside. But the question is, how good can Jared Goff be, and how much do you trust the Lions? So that's your gamble as well. So like the perfect comparison to me is Pitts and Hawkinson, because I could see Hawkinson with the more experience and the huge target share being a monster, and I see Pitts as someone who is young but isn't that great, but also has that potential to be a big monster. So I think that's going to really be a big factor to look at.
Right.
Now, when we go down our list here, we see here, just so we can scroll and show you guys. From there, we go into Logan Thomas, Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant. We have all 3 of these guys ranked fairly close. Goddard, as we see there in Philadelphia, he has opportunity for a breakout season. Fant, there's a lot of receivers with the Broncos, but we don't know what receiver is going to be favored. Yeah, he's already shown big play capability. And Logan Thomas, as we've seen, has great upside, is a big play receiver. And, Fitzpatrick has shown, nice affinity for the tight end, as we've seen some of the years that he's had with Mike Gesicki and how he's put up numbers. So I think it's going to be interesting to see which one of these tight ends ends up really coming out the gates and exploding.
One of the quarterbacks to me, I know there's a lot of new quarterbacks going on new teams, but one of the biggest quarterbacks to me that could change the whole offense and change all the fancy players is Fitzpatrick going to Washington. I think you saw what their players did with a mix and match of quarterbacks throughout the season. I think you finally get a someone that is consistent, who's normally is always going to start right. You know what you're getting out of Fitzpatrick. He can really change the landscape of how those players now. Like if you get the good Fitzpatrick during like the early the Jet years or the first Jet year or the last year the years with Miami, I mean that's a huge upgrade to that offense and all the players who are already doing good. We already talked about Logan Thomas coming out last year. We already talked about Terry, McLaurin, what he's done the first 2 years with all these different quarterbacks. I think to me he's the most intriguing going into it, and that's fantasy wise going into this team, how he could change that whole team around in reality and in fantasy. And
do some of the additional weapons that Washington picked up in the offseason, like a Curtis Samuel, they drafted another wide receiver. Do you think that may impact him some and reduce some of his upside? Because we know Fitzpatrick also likes to throw that ball downfield, but Logan Thomas was an athletic player who was able to get downfield, I feel like, pretty well. So, I mean,
I think Fitzpatrick, just like Gesicki, likes those big tight ends, those ones that go down the middle. He's a guy that stays in the pocket. He's the guy that takes the hit. He's willing to take the hit and let these try to guys get down in the middle and throw. I think you're right. It's gonna affect. I mean, someone's gonna get affected. We talked about this last year with Atlanta, and we were like, well, Gurley can't get it, and Ridley can't get it, and Julio, like all Hurst, like we knew one of those guys was gonna be a bust somewhere. Where they weren't gonna live up to what we're expecting. Again, I think it's something of a similar situation with Washington. You really got to see who Fitzpatrick favors to or has chemistry with. But I do think he does love his big tight end targets down the middle.
Absolutely. And Fant's in a situation where he has a lot of talent, but I think first we got to see who the quarterback is, and we got to see how they're going to play. So to me, there's a lot of questions around Fant. Goddard, I'm very much liking a lot of the things that could possibly be going on there with Hurts, with the possibility that Ertz.
I like Goddard even when Ertz was there the last couple of seasons. You saw the progression from season to season. He started becoming more of the go-to tight end, right?
He's literally just become like, I feel like he's become like Zach Ertz. Like it's like what Zach Ertz used to be is what he is now.
Yes. And so he kind of took it over, took the mantle. Again, is Ertz gone? I don't know.
Ertz is still with the team at this current point in time. Last season, as we see, he only played 11 games. He had 46 catches, 524 yards, 3 touchdowns.
So again, to me, I think this is where he takes the next step. You know what I mean?
Yep. And then rounding out, going into that next tier, we have Higbee, who I have ranked at 10. We have Hooper, who I have ranked at 11. Irv Smith, who I have ranked at 12. For you have Tanyan, you have Gronk, you have Higbee. In this space here, I know you have Tanyan over everyone. I have Tanyan much lower down. So speak to me about Tanyan and what you feel about him. As we saw
it's more to me. Look, I'm in the mindset that Aaron Rodgers is going to come back. He's going to play for Green Bay. I don't see how this gets not resolved, and I don't see Aaron Rodgers saying "F it, F the season." You know what I mean? And sitting out. So I do think he comes back. Again, I think he, the 11 touchdowns. I don't want to say it's going to be the norm, but I don't think he was a mirage. A lot of people feel like that was a kind of a mirage. No, I think he likes him in the red zone. I think he goes after them. I think he's going to target him in the red zone a lot. I could see him getting, 9, 10 touchdowns again. And that shows you a lot of what those touchdowns mean for tight ends.
Yep, and as we see here in 2019, only one player had 10 touchdowns, and that was Mark Andrews. And then in 2020, there was 2 players who had over 10 touchdowns, and that was Travis Kelce and Robert Tonyan. I very much think that I agree with you in the fact that Tonyan is someone that they look at in the red zone. But overall, this scoring is not sustainable. Like, you cannot be a guy that gets 11 touchdowns of your 52 receptions, and people think that you're safe. You're a boomer or bust type guy. Who in games where you don't score a touchdown, you're very risky. Now he did score a touchdown in almost every single game he played, based on these numbers. But there was games where he scored a lot, where he had like three touchdowns in one game. I think he had 2 touchdowns in another game, which really buoyed his stats up. But I'm not so sold on him. I like someone who I feel like could be a little bit more consistent. I like what we could possibly see out of Hooper, as we saw at the end of the season last year. I feel like Hooper and Baker really.
Yeah, no, I don't have. I think I have Hooper. Do I have Hooper in my? I think I have him, but he's lower. No,
Yeah.
I don't trust Hooper, and
Yeah,
he's the one that to me is the one that automatically gets left out in that offense. He's the first option to get left out.
Mm-hmm.
There to me, Hooper's not someone that when it comes push to shove, Mayfield's going to look his way.
I don't know.
Not with Landry and OBJ back, and then those 2 massive running backs that he has. I don't. To me, Hooper's the one that gets left out first.
Like, to me, it's like Tanyan and Hooper are in similar situations where they're not the primary options for their team, but I think they could be nice. And I think that you might see Hooper and Tanyan a little bit closer than some people are predicting. But I just, the chemistry that we started to see towards the end of the year between those 2 guys is something that interests me. He did start really putting up some numbers, and he's someone that I'm looking at, and Irv Smith is someone else that I'm looking at now that there's no Kyle Rudolph there.
Yeah,
I know that you're looking at, and you have Adam Thielen, you have Cook, and you have Jefferson. So he's kind of going to be a 4th option, much like a guy like Hooper. But he has a lot of good upside, I feel like, with his play. He's a dynamic tight end. But, like we see here for these last couple of years, tight end is a risky position.
It's a risk. It's a lot done with them is health there, because they're doing a lot. They're blocking, they're running these routes, and they're big guys, man. These guys are not, and so again, you see a lot of injuries, a lot of them missing games, missing time. I don't want to say they even management, but some of the guys, they give them off plays and things and that, of that nature. Because to me, who's interesting is the pair at New England. I'm really interested to see that, what they do with Henry and Smith. We saw already what Belichick loves to do when he had 2 tight ends with Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. So again, that offense really interests me as well. Those 2 guys interest me. Again, the biggest, and especially with Hunter Henry, is can they stay healthy? If they stay healthy, I mean, I don't know, man. They could be a problem.
Yeah, I think the big question there too is like, who's also going to be the favorite? Because you just don't know who's going to play the alpha role. Do you know how much they're going to really target the tight end? Because while theoretically speaking, we're looking back to that, realistically, we don't know what's going to happen until we start getting some game action and be like, this is what they're actually doing. So, again, these are some gambles, but these are guys that we're definitely going to have to look at, evaluate, and see, as they say, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the point of the draft where you're getting them worth the amount of upside that you're getting?
Right.
I think another guy that we have to look at like that is Gronk and Higbee, 2 guys that you have ranked kind of a little bit higher here. Higbee was just not traded, but Stafford was just traded over to the Rams, and we know that he does a decent job targeting the tight end, as he did with Hockenson last season. But how do you feel about that connection? I know you have it ranked pretty high.
I have Higbee. That's someone that could do way better than what he did last year. Again, it's the same point I was doing. Now it's a big upgrade now, right? You're getting someone that has shown a tendency to go to their tight end. He now doesn't have, I think Everett's gone, right? Everett's not. So again, now Higbee is the main guy. We know we have Kupp, we know we have Woods. But again, to me, that actually helps Higbee more than anything, in the sense that when you have those 2 wide receivers, the tight end, even as talented as he is the one that's going to get the less attention, right? Then he's not going to get the double coverage. And I think Higbee's that good. He's shown to be that good. Not maybe the last year, but the year before.
I definitely agree with you. Gesicki is someone that we have ranked actually in the same exact spot. I think he's another guy that it's really just going to be interesting to see who the targets favor, as Miami's added a lot more weapons to their offense. So I don't know what's going to happen. He really didn't do that well last season. He didn't do that bad, but I would say it's a disappointing season from what most people expected, because he did start to come on towards the end of last season, and him and Fitzpatrick had good chemistry.
And I think that's the biggest thing, Steve, what you said. You're going to say, I don't mean to cut you off, but is Gesicki didn't do that great, and a lot of the great games that he had didn't come with the quarterback that he's having now.
Yep.
So that to me, I think he's talented. I've always liked Gesicki. You see what he could do.
Yep.
But again,
red flag.
They never connected. They never meshed. It never worked. The best. I'm sure. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me. I'm sure if you look, Fitzpatrick's probably, when he was in the game, probably gave Gesicki the most burn, right? Probably had his best games with Fitzpatrick. But again, to me, that is my biggest concern. Is now you're going to a quarterback that didn't develop chemistry with him. Now he has more weapons, like you said, right? Now he has a receivers, actually, right? So how is it going to work? How is it going to affect Gesicki? And it can really go both ways. It can really go where he just gets lost, and it just becomes, a tight end it's a great tight end. They have to keep an eye on him, but he's not going to get the targets. He's not getting the receptions. Or it could be where, hey, this opens up Gesicki more for Tua to go to him, because they have to spread out the ball, because they have to worry about the actual receivers now.
Now, as we wrap this up, there's one player that I want to talk about that you have on your list that I don't have on my list, which I'm going to be, when I update my new list, will be on my list. And that is a player that was with the Rams and now has moved to Seattle, and that is tight end Gerald Everett. You have him ranked as like your 22nd tight end overall. Right. I don't have him on the list. More than likely, Troutman, I feel like, is probably going to end up coming off. I was drinking some of the preseason Kool-Aid on him, but overall, I think I'm going to probably drop him or Jarwin down, or maybe Ebron, and put in Everett, because with the Seattle offense, I feel like Wilson could possibly look his way more than we're thinking. And I think at the end of the draft, he's a sneaky play.
Well, I think if when you saw, I think it was not last year. I think it was the year before. That year they lost. They got their tight ends got injuries. I forget their names. But when one got hurt, the other one came in. The tight end did well 2 or 3 games. He got hurt. The backup came in. The backup of the backup came in.
Yep.
And you saw Wilson go to that tight end. And again, their names elude me, so I apologize. But they did good. So he does, again, have that history where he looks the way to the tight end, right? Again, is it going to be consistent? That's the issue. How consistent going to be? Is ever going to be there for 2 games and then be lost for 3? You really can't live with that, right? You have to have some consistency. You can't get 15-15 and then 2-0-6. That you can't live with. And that's when you saw Wilson with the tight end, that's what you got from Seattle tight ends, is they can have that big game and then come back and really have stinkers. And that's what really kills a fantasy team.
I totally agree with you. And I feel like that's the same way I look at Gronk, where he's kind of like a very much hit or miss type guy, where he's going to have some games that you're going to be like, yeah, I started Gronk. He was great. And there's going to be other games because you have AB, you have Evans, you have Godwin, you have the running backs, 2 of them at that. So it's a lot of people to get the ball to consistently expect huge numbers out of a guy like Gronk. But the thing about it is, like we keep going back to, this is not a deep position. Gronk still finished in the top 10 at your tight end position last season. Now, was he high end? No. When you look at him in comparison to a guy like Waller scored almost 124 points. More, yeah. He basically doubled him up. So, that's something to consider when you're looking at the position. And that's, again, why I can understand why someone might take Pitts a little bit higher, is because he does have upside, but it is a huge risk at that.
Well, to me with Gronk is again, he's someone that if you wanted to call manage, load manage, work manage. He said himself last year they were giving him plays off. What's his name? Started coming in. Oh my God, what's the backup again?
OJ Howard, but he got
OJ Howard. So you saw a lot of that where they took Rob out for parts of the game.
They break, then come back in.
Yeah, and then come back in. So that's what you're going to have with Gronk. I'm assuming they're going to keep doing that because they saw what the end result was when the Gronk was in the playoffs. They got what they needed, right? So again, to me, that's the biggest issue with Gronk is they might not play him as consistently. But again, OJ Howard could also leave. He could be a trading where he gets traded somewhere, and then that opens up more for Gronk. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very true, and it's all things that we have to look at as we're going into the offseason. Another player that's in the exact situation is going to be Zach Ertz. I'm assuming Zach Ertz is going to be traded, but we don't know for sure, so we have to see. But I think his upside tremendously skyrockets if he's able to get away from that Philly situation and go to a place that he can actually get some targets and become, a relevant part of the offense again. And I think that helps Dallas Goedert and puts Goddard up another rung, I feel like, in my rankings, taking Goddard from 8th to maybe I might have Goddard on the same level as a TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. With that being said, that's the wrap for our tight end rankings. You got a good breakdown of how we have the players. We're going to be doing updated rankings throughout the season and throughout this preseason in order to make sure that everyone is up to date and ready to go for their drafts. So definitely stay tuned and stay ready for our next draft episode so we can actually give you more nuggets of information as we start to get them and we start to see what's going on in training camp and preseason and be able to start deciphering the code of the tight end.
And definitely check us out on Instagram, TD Blitz, me, and Twitter at TDS Ricky on Instagram as well. You're going to see daily probably posts of football from here on in. Just little tidbits, players that we are just looking at, think might do good, might not, questions about. But anyway, just definitely give us a look on Instagram. Hit me up on Twitter at TDS Ricky.
And as always, I'm at Instagram, TDS Taco. I'm always giving takes, giving my opinions, giving my thoughts. Just to reference what Ricky was saying, this is our new Instagram page, TDS Blitz. This is for our fantasy football people only. As we see here, we're talking different players. We're showing some of the different things that these guys are doing. We're comparing and debating the players that are going in their general range. As we see here, this most recent post, I was comparing Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, David Montgomery, and we did it with a little bit of humor, as they say. So it's definitely a good thing to check out. It's going to be a great resource for you guys to use throughout the season. Like Ricky said, there's going to be consistent content there every single day. You're going to probably start seeing multiple posts a day coming up. So it's definitely going to be a good place for you guys to follow in order to make sure you win your leagues. On that note, we're done. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. And again, peace.